Welcome everyone. In the last video we have discussed the various population attributes, population growth and the growth models. So in this video we'll discuss the rest of the topics starting with the life history variation. So we all know that populations evolved to maximize their reproductive fitness, which we often call as Darwin fitness. Now, in according to ecology, where we say population or individuals, they have two basic functions, that is survival and reproduction. Now, some species they breed only once in their lifetime. For example, if we talk about Pacific salmon fish. So Pacific salmon fish, it is an anadromous fish, right? And this set example is of bamboo. While other they breed multiple times during their lifetime, such as birds and mammal. Some organisms they produce large number of small offspring, such as oyster and pelagic fish, whereas other produce a small number but large size offspring, that is birds and mammal. So ecologists suggest that life history trait of organism they have evolved from the abiotic and biotic components of the habitat in which they live. So evolution of life history trait in different species is currently an important area of research being conducted by the ecologist. Now we'll talk about population interactions, right? We know that in a particular habitat or a well-defined geographical area, there are many number of species which live in a harmony or an ecological equilibrium where they interact with each other and they interact with the physical or abiotic environment. So it is obvious that in nature animal and plants and even microbes they do not and cannot live in an isolation, right? So there is interaction. Even in minimal communities many interactive linkage exist. They could be beneficial, which is assigned by a plus sign, whereas it could also be detrimental, which is assigned by a negative sign. And in case of neutral interaction we denote it with a 0. Now let's look at the possible outcomes of the interspecific interactions where different species they are interacting with each other. Now the first one is predation. So predation by word is basically is where one species feed on the other. The one which feeds known as the predator, while the other species known as the prey. So predation is a key ecological process. And how it is a key ecological process? That it regulates population dynamics, it maintains biodiversity, and it shapes and evolutionary adaptation in both prey and predator. So basically अगर हम predator की बात करें या हम prey की बात करें, so they both are constantly evolving according to the ecosystem, right? Now you can think of a predation as a nature way of transferring to higher trophic levels the energy fixed by plant. Now the predation also helps in maintaining species diversity. Prey species have evolved various defenses to lessen the impact of predation. Now we already know that the predator feeds on prey. So predator is usually more powerful in strength or more reproductively fit in comparison to that of a prey. So, the prey species have also evolved various defenses to maintain their survival. Prey species have evolved various defenses to lessen the impact of predation. Some species of insect and frog, they cryptically colored or camouflage to avoid being detected, right? So here in this diagram, if you clearly see that there is a frog which is being camouflaged in the environment so that it does not get detected by its prey. Now monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to its predator, which is a bird, because of the special chemical present on its body. Right now, the butterfly acquired this chemical during its caterpillar stage by feeding on a poisonous weed. Now, the plants have also evolved variety of we can say morphological or chemical defenses against the herbivore animals. The thorns in cactus is the most common morphological mean of defense, right? Many plants produce chemical that make herbivores sick when they are eaten, right? Inhibit feeding or digestion, disrupt its reproduction, or even kill it. Or when closely related species compete for the same limiting resource, right? But it is not entirely true. Totally unrelated species could also compete for the same resource. Now, let's consider an example. In some shallow South American lakes, it is seen that visiting flamingos and resident fish, they compete for the same common food, that is the zooplanktons in the lake. Secondly, resources need not to be limiting for competition to occur. In interference competition, the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to interfering and inhibitory presence of another species, right? Even if resources are abundant. So it basically means that for a competition, resource has not to be limited, right? Such cases, we can say that it is a type of an interference competition where the presence of one species is affecting the feeding efficiency of the other, right? Now, according to Gauss' competitive exclusive principle, states that two closely related species competing for the same resource, they cannot, right? They cannot exist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually, right? This may be true if the resources are limited, right? Now, to contrast this principle, one such mechanism is the resource partnering. Now, let's consider an example if two species are compete for a same resource, right? So they could avoid this competition. For instance, different time feeding or different foraging patterns, right? Now, MacArthur shows that five closely related species of warbles living on same tree were able to avoid competition and they coexist due to behavioral difference. Now, in this diagram, we can clearly see that the five different species, they are coexisting because of their foraging activities, right? They are foraging from the different parts of the tree, right? Which make them coexist and avoid an unnecessary competition. Now the next is parasitism. Many parasites have evolved to be host specific in such a way that both the host and parasite, they tend to co-evolve. Now, similar to that of predation, in case of parasitism, it is seen that host also evolves special mechanism for rejecting and resisting the parasite. Now, in counterpart to that, parasite has to evolve mechanism to counter react and neutralize them. The parasite evolved special adaptation such as loss of unnecessary sense organs, presence of adhesive organs such as suckers or to cling on the host, and loss of digestive system as it has to obtain digested food from the host, and high reproductive capacity to maintain its population, leading to its survival. Now, parasites that feed on external surface of the host organism are called as ectoparasite. The most common example is lice on human and ticks on dogs. Now, there are certain parasites which live inside the body of the host organism in different sites such as liver, lungs, kidney. Such parasites are called as ectoparasite. Now, the life cycle of these ectoparasites, they are way more complex because they are host specific. The type of parasitism seen, that is brood parasitism. So in this parasitism, the parasitic bird lays its egg in the nest of his host and let the host incubate those eggs for them. Now, during the course of evolution, the egg of the parasite bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chances of the host detection. Now, this interaction is when one species is benefit while the other is neither harmed nor benefit, right? The first example of such type of species or population interaction is the orchid growing on a mango tree and barnacles on the back of a whale. So in both of these example, neither a mango tree nor a whale derived any benefit, but on the other hand, the orchid and the barnacle, they have benefit, ensuring their survival. Another interesting example is of the cattle egret and grazing cattle. Right, the egret always foreclose where the cattle are grazing because the cattle, as they move, they stir up and flushes out the insects from the vegetation, right, that otherwise might be difficult for that bird to find and catch. Now, another example of commensalism is the interaction of sea anemone and the clownfish. So in this, the fish get protection from the predators because of the stinging tentacles of the sea anemone, whereas the sea anemone does not appear to have any benefit by hosting the clownfish. Now the next interaction is mutualism. Now in mutualism, both of the species, they are benefit from each other. So we can add a 2 positive sign here. Now there are various example of mutualism. First one is a lichen. So lichen, it represents relationship between a fungus and a photosynthetic algae or cyanobacteria. Here we can see a lichen. Similarly, mycorrhiza are association between the fungi and the root of higher plant. Right, in this association, the fungal help to plant the absorb the nutrients from deep into the soil, whereas plant provides energy yielding carbohydrates to fungus. The most spectacular and evolutionary fascinating example of mutualism we can say is the plant animal relationship. So plant offer rewards or fee in the form of pollen and nectar for pollinators and juicy and nutrient fruits for the seed dispersers. Right, another example is of fig trees. So in many species of fig trees there is a tight one-to-one relation between the with the pollinator species of wasp. Right, it means that in a given fig species can be pollinated only by a partner wasp species, not other. So it is a species specific interaction. The tabular comparison of all the type of interaction and its effect on species. So we have seen that in mutualism both of the species are benefited, right, and in commensalism only one is benefited while the other one is neither harmed nor benefit. We call it as neutral. In case of parasitism one is benefit while the other one is harmed. Similar case is shown in predation, and in competition both of the species are harmed, right, and in amensalism only one species is harmed while the other has neither harm nor loss, and it can be seen the interaction between the antibiotics and bacteria.